Okay, in lesson 7, we're going to talk about circles in the coordinate plane. And we know when we take a circle and graph it on the coordinate plane that there has to be an equation for that circle. So we're going to take a look at that. We're going to start off first by taking a look at this diagram and noting that the equation of a circle is related to the Pythagorean theorem and the distance formula. And I'll kind of look at both of those. First of all, you can see with my circle here, my center is at 0, 0, that I do have a right triangle when I look at a radius drawn in and connecting those two endpoints. I could think of that as x squared plus y squared equal to r squared, my radius, looking at Pythagorean theorem. Now, if we were thinking distance formula, and here is my endpoint 0, 0, or my center, this point here being xy, I could think about my distance as the square root of x minus 0 quantity squared plus y minus 0 quantity squared, and that would be equal to r, my radius. And I want you to note here where my center point, where those numbers end up. Here and here, this is telling me I have a center of 0, 0. And the equation of a circle is going to look similar to this. The only thing is that they don't use the radical sign. Okay, so as you look down below, again, this is the standard form for our equation. They're showing, starting with distance formula, d equals the square root of x minus x quantity squared plus y minus y quantity squared. We know that that distance, d, would actually be our radius, and that one of those points is going to be our center point. Now, they're going to use the letters hk for center. So we have x minus h and y minus k. And then, like I said, in order to get rid of their square root sign, they go ahead and they square both sides. So this is the standard form for our equation of our circle, where we have a center of hk and a radius of r. Now, a lot of times, when I write this myself, I end up putting the x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared first, and then I set it equal to r squared. Of course, that's the same equation, it's just flipped around. So if you look down below, we're just going to practice writing our equation. In question number 1, they give us a center of 1, negative 8 and a radius of 7. And really all we need to do is we need to make those substitutions. If this is my center point, this is going to be hk, and my radius is going to be r. And I'm going to go ahead and substitute it in up here for hk and r. Therefore, I would have, now I'm going to use my x and y. X minus 1 quantity squared plus y minus a minus 8. Well, minus a negative 8, I'm actually going to put as plus 8. And equal to r squared, well, 7 squared is 49. So a lot of times you'll see some of those things simplified. You won't see minus a minus. We'll make that a plus. And the number squared, typically they're actually going to square that number right, what the result would be. Another thing that I want you to keep in mind is I can determine my center point here of 1, negative 8. It's the opposite symbols or signs as what's in the equation. And the xy is really any point along the edge of the circle, because any point I pick here, if I plugged in the x and the y, the result should be 49. Okay, let's look at number 2. This one tells me my center is at the origin. We know the origin is 0, 0. If I have a diameter of 8, well, diameter of 8 would tell me that my radius is 4. Now if I go ahead and I substitute in for h and k, I'm going to end up with something that looks as so. I will tell you that I don't have to have the zeros in there, and if we were writing it as simple as possible, we would want to eliminate some of those symbols and numbers. So you may see something for this equation written as x squared plus y squared equals 16. That means the same thing. This one is probably considered more simplified. I'm pretty flexible there. I would take either answer. Question 3. Question 3 asks us to write the equation for the circle graphed at the right. So when I look at my circle graphed at the right here, I have a center point of 0, 4, and I have this point up here at 0, 7. Well, I know that my center is 0, 4. This being my point 0, 7, well, I can just determine that my radius here is 3 units. I could count the units, or I could subtract my coordinates. And now I just need to substitute in. Again, we're going to have x minus h quantity squared plus y minus k quantity squared equal to r squared. And again, I'm going to go ahead and square that number. With the 0, I don't have to write that, so this could be simplified by saying x squared minus y minus 4 quantity squared equal to 9. This would probably be the most simplified. Example B, they would like us to write the equation of a circle with a center at -2, 4, and it passes through the point -6, 7. So here, my center point, I know we have an HK. What I don't have is I don't have a radius. I do know it passes through the point -6, 7. So I need to think about, well, how can I determine? I need to know from the center to this point how long that is. And so we do need to think about using the distance formula with these two coordinates, right? I need to use my distance formula to find the distance from the center to the edge of the circle. So I'm going to go ahead and say x minus x quantity squared and y minus y quantity squared. I can see here this is going to be a -4 squared, so I'm looking at -4 squared is going to be positive 16, 3 squared is going to be positive 9. Well, the square root of 25 is a perfect square, and so we get 5. This is going to be what I'm going to use for my radius. Once I've determined my radius, I can go ahead and just make my substitutions. I have HK, and now I have R. So my equation for my circle, well, x minus a -2, I'm going to go ahead and write that as +2, quantity squared. Y minus 4, quantity squared, and that would be equal to 5 squared, which is 25. And this would be the equation for my circle. Okay, example C, we're going to try a little bit of graphing. For example C, they would like us to state the radius and the center and then to graph my circle. So I'm kind of working in the other direction here. When I look at number 1, x squared plus y squared equal to 36. Well, x squared plus y squared, this is actually going to tell me a center of 0, 0. There are no numbers for h and k. And my radius, well, my radius is going to be the square root of 36, which is going to be 6. Now, how am I going to graph that? We're going to do a sketch of it. So exact, but I can get a general idea. I know that this is centered at 0, 0. Now, if it's a radius of 6, I know, first of all, that if I went up 6 here, it would intersect this point. If I go directly over 6, it would intersect. Down 6, to the left 6. So it's going to intersect those 4 points specifically. It's also going to be 6 units out diagonally. It's just that I can't count 6 exact diagonals. That's a little bit more. Those are not 1 unit. So once I get these 4 points graphed, I'm just going to go ahead and kind of sketch my circle in, and you'll probably determine that it's a little bit harder to draw a circle than you think. Okay, let's look at number 2. In number 2, identifying my center point and my radius, I'm going to look at my numbers used here. Now remember that the center point is actually, or my equation is minus, this must have been minus a minus, and so it's the opposite of the symbol there. The radius, well, that's going to be the square root of 16, or a radius of 4. So now my center is at negative 4, 2. This is my starting point. I'm going to go left 4, up 2. Now I can see that sometimes in this particular one we're going to go off of the graph, and that's okay. We're just going to kind of give us a rough sketch here. I can go from this point, I can go up 4, to the right 4, down, and then again I'm just going to go ahead and sketch. Okay, if you have further questions about the equation of a circle or how to graph it, please feel free to stop in and see me.